What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the NHL Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. I got thrown off because I saw my mic was muted, but I realized StreamYard automatically mutes the mic when we have intros going, and I had vicious PTSD from Clayton telling me, you can click your mouse all the time, so threw me off. But what's going on, everybody? Nice little Saturday afternoon here. A little chilly. A little snowy. Interesting 4-gamer last night. Sorry I missed yesterday. It snowed here. Usually have someone watching my little man for the show. She couldn't make it because of the snow. Cliffy handled it well, though, and he's rocking a Habs jersey today. How you doing?
Doing good. Didn't have a good night last night. You and I were both on Columbus. That certainly didn't go our way. I didn't watch the game, but seems like they didn't play that poorly. Those things happen, but interesting slate here tonight because it's only 8 games, but there are a lot of big names, right? Like you have Pasternak, you have the Dallas guys, you have Toronto against Vancouver, you have Edmonton going into Calgary, you have Pittsburgh, you have Los Angeles with their new line combinations. Like there are a lot. Pretty big names for only half the teams being on the slate. Makes ownership interesting, makes I think the middle range a little bit interesting because there are some really high owned spots in the middle range, but there are also some really low ones that I'm kind of looking at. So fun little slate. And honestly, I'm wearing my Habs jersey because like I make fun of Leafs fans quite a bit. I think justifiably so. Habs and Leafs is a good rivalry, but Montreal-Boston games, like the actual games themselves, there's almost nothing like it. Like I look forward to Montreal-Boston games way more than Montreal-Toronto games. So looking forward to watching that one tonight. Don't think it's going to go their way, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Pretty fun slate, I think.
Bragging rights in the Clifford household, right? Your brothers are Bruins fans?
Yeah, my brother and my dad are Boston fans, so they get all those Patriots titles. They get the World Series. They get the Stanley Cup. They get Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce back in 2008. Meanwhile, because I was 7 years old when Montreal and Toronto won the Stanley Cup in the World Series, I'm a Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Blue Jays fan. Haven't had anything to celebrate in over 30 years now. So maybe not a wise decision by 7-year-old Cliffy.
I mean, I feel you. I got the Jets and I got the Rangers. They haven't won since '94. The Jets haven't won a Super Bowl since I was like negative 20 years old. So feel the pain.
Yeah. See, I'm not I watched the NFL, but I didn't really have like a team growing up. So I started rooting for the Houston Texans because when I got into football, that's when they like became a franchise in the early 2000s or whatever it was. And like, sure as hell hasn't been anything to cheer about for the Houston Texans either.
Oh, they play today.
Better this season certainly, but it had been some tough sledding for a few seasons.
Yeah, I hope they win today. My wife's a Ravens fan and she's at the game, so I hope go Texans. She's gonna be frozen by the end of the night. But
yeah,
got a $20 super chat from our resident. What do we call him? Moderator. We'll call him a moderator. He's our moderator. Thank you, Clayton, for the Dan Vladar Josh Norris relief fund. Norris is back. I hope they send him to like Kamachataka and put him on the 5th line. Vladar, I can't believe they're starting Vladar again. Like, I don't understand their love or their infatuation with Vladar. And Wolf is still backing him up. Just let the kid play.
I most of the time I get it. I think tonight it kind of makes sense. Like keep Wolf away from Edmonton. I think it makes sense. Like you don't want Wolf going in and giving up like 5 goals on 11 shots or something and getting pulled after the first period because Connor McDavid's lighting him up. So 95% of the time I'm with you. I think tonight it kind of makes sense though.
Yeah, so I mean, like Vladar will get pulled after the first period.
We'll have to play the final 40 minutes anyway. Yeah.
This is a good slate though, man. I love 8-game slates. These mid-range slates where you actually have to make some decisions where it's just not like, oh, let's jam 41% Colorado won because they have a 98% top two stack percentage. You know what I mean? So this is a fun one. Let's get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you so much for all the support through the affiliates, through the super chats. You guys have been amazing. We do have a deal for you guys for MMA a bit later, but I appreciate you guys so much. I put the link into the chat if you are looking to sign up for anything premium. It could be any sport, any membership, something as simple as like the PGA lineup generator, something as intense as monthly MMA sims, which I have used today. I really enjoy it. I'm using them. I maxed the mini max, which filled 10 hours early. Big brains over at DraftKings with these contest sizing, but thank you guys so much for the support, and let's get into this slate, shall we? Yes. Let's start with that Montreal game. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.4 total. Heading into Boston, the Bruins have a 3.7 total. We kind of scoured the Twitter verse before the show. We couldn't find anything on Brad Marchand. We're going to assume he's in. There's a couple people that they announced in, a couple people they announced out, like Lowry, Waterspoon. Nothing on Marchand either way. We're going to assume he's sliding in on that second line with Zacha and DeBrusk, but don't know for sure. Luckily, it's the first game. Wow, I can sneeze. Let's think about mangoes. There we go. Think about like a fruit or something, it goes away. I made that up, but this is an interesting game because there are a lot of expensive spots, and Boston 1 is the spot with the highest projected ownership, and it's not particularly close. They're coming in with almost 20% projected ownership. And I get it. Pasternak's coming off a hat trick. You just got to see if Marchand's in. I don't know why I said Marchand would be on the second line. He'd be on that top line with Coyle and Pasternak. Had a tough start to that show here, but here we go. I'm assuming he's in. If he is in, maybe it brings down the ownership because there's questions about Marchand. But is it safe to say like it's not the best power play spot because Montreal doesn't take a ton of penalties, but when they do, they can't stop a nosebleed? Like if Montreal takes 3 penalties tonight, like it's conceivable that Boston goes 3 for 3 on the power play. It's not like that game earlier in the season when they took like 11 penalties against the Wild and gave up like 41 power play goals. Speaking of the Wild, 5 power play goals last night against the Panthers. Anything can happen in hockey. That was ridiculous. But anyway, I do really like Boston 1 here. The issue I'm running into is the ownership because Edmonton 1 currently is projected for a third of the ownership. Vancouver 1 currently projected for like a 10th of the ownership. You know what I mean? I think they're a good play. It's a very good spot. It's just an ownership thing, and I get it because they are cheaper than Vancouver. They're cheaper than Edmonton. Saves you some coin there, but I do really like Boston 1. On the flip side, I don't mind Montreal 1. They have been a pretty good line, and it's a mid-range line with a little bit of positive leverage. I know they have a small road total, but they're only 15-2. It's a little bit more expensive than a filler line. I'm not saying play them in single entry. I'm saying if you're making 20, 40, 100, you can get to a little bit there. Boston 2, heavy negative leverage there. I think they're okay because once you get past the Suzuki line, you're in some pretty good matchups. Just be aware you're probably going to play one of the chalkier filler lines of the night, but I think it's fine. This is a Boston game for me.
Yeah. For now, we're going to assume Brad Marchand is playing because, as you mentioned, we were talking about it before the show. There's been a couple times this season where Marchand has missed practice, and we haven't really gotten updates, and then he's just appeared in the lineup. Like, he hasn't missed a game yet this year, and there have been practices he missed. So we're going to assume he's in. That ownership is high, and of all the lines priced over 20K, they're over twice as highly. They're expected to be twice as highly owned as the next highest line, which is Pittsburgh, and we'll get to them a little bit later. So yes, there is going to be a ton of ownership. There's 2 things to know about that Boston line. One, I don't think it should be that big of a surprise, but David Pastrnak and Boston in general have the best numbers offensively with Pastrnak and Marchand on the ice than when Pastrnak has, whether it's James Van Riemsdyk or Pavel Zacha has been his left winger at times. I think Matt Poitras spent a game or 2 up there. Like, he's had a bunch of different left wingers. Offensive numbers are best with Brad Marchand and by quite a bit. They're at 3.3 expected goals, 3.0 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. I wrote about Pasternak in the picks article today. Free to read Tuesday, Thursday, almost every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at Stokastic.com. Just head on over to the NHL section. Pasternak's last 22 games, he's averaging 5.5 shots per game, which is just absolutely bonkers. Part of it is an elite shot rate, top 5 shot attempts per minute in the league in that span. That's usually where he is anyway, but a lot of it is elite ice time. Like last season and at times this season, part of the problem with playing Pasternak is he was skating 16, 17, 18 minutes or whatever. He's been pretty consistently at least over 19 minutes. It's been over 19 for 10, I believe 10 straight games now, averaging over 21 and a half minutes in that span. So he's getting a lot of ice time, and that's helping keep his shot rates fairly high, basically game in and game out. Now, I do like Boston 1. I agree with you. We liked them on Thursday. Should have played them. Didn't. I mean, those things happen. Like them again here tonight. 2 reasons why. 1, the Montreal top line, their defensive numbers have been sliding. But we talked about that on Thursday's show. It continued Thursday night. Man, they did not look good against is it Wednesday night against New Jersey? No, Thursday night. Last 12 games, 2.9 expected goals against per 60, 3.4 actual goals against for the Montreal top line. That's really bad. Montreal is taking fewer penalties, and that's kind of helping their penalty kill. I mentioned that in the picks article. Montreal was giving up the 4th most power play goals against in the early portions of the season. Over the last 6 weeks, now they're 9th most. It's like it sounds like a backhanded compliment, but it is an improvement, and it is because they don't take a lot of penalties. So I do like Boston 1 for that sense, because it kind of feels like this is a little bit of a lull in Montreal season. Like teams go through it all the time, especially bad teams like Montreal. So I really do like Boston 1. Boston 2 would be interesting depending on how they line up. If they do have Matt Poitras on that second line, could be James Van Riemsdyk. He's been playing there, but Poitras was there in practice, I believe. Poitras and DeBrusk actually have pretty good offensive numbers so far this season. So Josh Anderson is back from Montreal. He's going to be back on the second line. And we've talked about it often this season. He's just a really bad defensive winger. He makes that line worse defensively. It's not a bad spot for Boston too, but they're just going to come in with a lot of ownership because they do have a high total. They are a cheap filler you can use with, Edmonton or Toronto or Vancouver or whatever. So I think I would still just stick with Boston 1 just because Montreal is having a lot of time killing penalties. But the other point I want to bring up about the Boston top line is that with Marchand and Pasternak on the ice, yes, they're much better offensively. They're also way worse defensively. 3.1 expected goals against, 3.4 actual goals against per 60 minutes with Marchand and Pasternak on the ice at 5-on-5 this season. That is really bad. Like that'd be bad for Montreal, let alone for a high-end team like Boston. It makes Montreal 1 a little interesting to me for 2 reasons. 1, as you mentioned, not a lot of ownership. 3% top 2 stack, 2.8% ownership. That's perfectly fine. 2, Boston's been taking a lot of penalties. Over the last 2 months, they're taking 4 minor penalties per game. They're one of 4 teams to be taking that many per game in that span. And Montreal's top power play unit, a little bit of a struggle lately with the rest of the team, but since Slafkovsky's gotten there, it's generally been a lot better. So, and Boston's penalty kill has not been good for, I think it's kind of going under, not talked about enough, how much Boston's own penalty kill has been on the slide. 19th by shots against per minute on the PK going back to December 1st. That's a span of 22 games now. 15th by goals against. Like this is an average penalty kill. So I think I kind of like Montreal 1 here, but yeah, Boston 1 is definitely my favorite line in this game and by quite a bit. I will also shout out your boy Josh Roy. Him and Sean Monahan look pretty good. It's a small sample, 65 shot attempts per 60 minutes in their 4 games together at 5-on-5. I think like a Roy Armia 2-man or something like that certainly makes a lot of sense for cheap, but it is, both top lines that I like, and Boston's a lot more even when factoring in price.
Strong name, that Josh. He's not shy about shooting either, which is good for DFS.
Yeah.
Dallas, the Stars, they have a 3.4 total heading into New Jersey. The Devils have a 3 total. Devils played last night. They beat the Blue Jackets 4 or 5-1. I forgot what it was, but Vitek Vanacek won last night, so it's going to be Nico Dawes.
That'd be a hell of a comeback. Nigel, like 45-year-old Nigel Dawes or whatever, coming back to play goalie for the. I mean, it can't be worse than what they've had. So
can't be worse than Nico Dawes. So anyway, interesting little game here. Devils on a back-to-back, but since Wyatt Johnston replaced Joe Pavelski on the top line, I have been in more on Dallas top line. Like, I'm a big Pavelski guy, but like, I thought he was declining like 3 years ago, and his past few seasons have been great. I think it's finally starting to catch up with him. We can't outrun Father Time. Wyatt Johnston just better defensively for sure. Offensively, I think he's a better skater, and that fits better with Hintz and Robertson. They're going to get the Nico Hischier matchup, but with Bratton Toffoli there, it's not as scary as when it's like Hischier, Haula, and Mercer or something like that. So I do really like Dallas one here. They're only at 16,800 too, which is pretty cheap. You can fit them in with almost anybody, and they're coming in right at their top 2 stack percentage. And the Devils' goaltending has just been awful. So I do really like Dallas one here. I don't have an issue going back to the Dallas 2 train. I just think, for the extra 2,300, you're going to get some power play. It's just a better line. I have no issue going to Dallas 2. Don't get me wrong. If you need the salary savings, I think Dallas 2 is completely fine. I just happen to like Dallas 1 better here tonight. On the Devils side, I guess the Devils top line is fine in MME. I'm not overly excited about playing a back-to-back Devils team here tonight. I mean, if you want to get to them in your 20 max or your 150 max portfolio, I think that's fine. As a filler, Timo, Mercer, McLeod, I think is probably my preferred line on the Devils. They're only 12-8, coming with a little negative leverage, but if the team's going to be on back-to-back and this and that, I'd rather get the filler line because they need to get you less to hit value. You know what I mean? I don't know if that is really a good thought process, but I don't mind the Devils second line here tonight.
Yeah. One thing I mentioned on the show yesterday was how much worse the Devils power play has been without Jack Hughes. Yesterday on the show, it was their shot attempts have gone down 35% when he's not on the top power play unit. And, the Devils scored 4 times last night against Columbus. None of them were on the power play. That should, we expected Columbus's penalty kill to be better with the return of Boone Jenner and Sean Corrali, but that should kind of indicate like where this power play is right now without Jack Hughes. Like, he is a massive, massive piece of that PP. So it's a little bit worrisome to not have that power play upside. Like, there's not a lot of ownership on New Jersey. They're not quite a mid-price line, but they're close enough to it because you can play 2 similar lines at this price range. There's not a lot of ownership, 7.4%, 9.2% top 2 stack. So I think they're definitely in play. I wrote up Dallas 1 in the picks article, though, because, you mentioned Joe Pavelski being on a little bit of a slide. Just this season, with Joe Pavelski off the top line's generating 31% more shot attempts and 35% more expected goals per 60 minutes. Over the last 2 years, nearly 120 minutes without Pavelski on the top line, 3.7 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60 minutes for that Dallas top line. Like, Pavelski's still good at what he reminds me at this point of like Corey Perry. I still think he's better than Corey Perry right now. But Corey Perry got to a point where he had to play 3rd, 4th line minutes, play net front on the power play because he could stand there and he still had the hands to deflect or play around the net and things like that. But playing, 18 minutes, including top 5-on-5 matchups, he just couldn't do it anymore. I'm wondering if Pavelski's just not kind of run into the same problem. So I really do like Dallas 1 here. It's the New Jersey goaltending. Again, we say it often. The New Jersey goaltending doesn't scare us. 5.7% ownership for a line under 16K. What I bring up in the picks article is that other than the super chalky St. Louis top line we'll get to, this Dallas top line has the highest top 2 stack percentage. of any line under 17 grand. So I really do like Dallas 1. I think Dallas 2 is very much in play here as well. Like Dallas 2, since Christmas, 2.6 expected goals, 3.6 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. I was looking at some of the playmaking data from a Patreon called All Three Zones. Matt Duchene leads this entire Dallas. Like, think of the players on this team. You have Rope Hintz and Jason Robertson. Tyler Seguin's still not that bad. Wyatt Johnston's a really good young player. And by far, the best playmaker has been Matt Duchene. And New Jersey's second line, like Timo and McLeod, like Timo by himself is just not, he's just having another bad season for New Jersey. Timo and McLeod just don't have good defensive numbers together. 3 expected goals against per 60 minutes and 125 minutes together. I think it's a pretty soft matchup against that New Jersey second line. And without Dougie Hamilton, without Jonas Siegenthaler, like once you get into those second and third pairs and you're getting into like Kevin Ball and Colin Miller, like there's just nothing there to be worried about defensively. So I really do like both Dallas top lines. In a nutshell, I prefer Dallas 1. I think the matchup for Dallas 2 is really, really good though. So I just in general, I prefer the Dallas side in this game.
Oh yeah, me too. And I think, depending on your build, both lines makes some sense. Let's talk about the Leafs. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.2 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3.4. Hockey night in Canada. This game's at 7 p.m. Eastern. Probably going to be Marty Jones. Probably going to be low-owned Canucks. No one ever plays the Canucks. 23,100, 1.8% projected ownership. Yeah. I'm in on them. We've talked, I guess it's been a few weeks now, how bad the Leafs penalty kill is. And it's bad. Now, Vancouver's power play has been struggling a little bit, and I think that's Quinn Hughes related, to be honest. Like, I know they were flip-flopping Kuzmenko and Hronek, and the power play with Hronek was bad. Kuzmenko sucks. But if Pettersson, Besser, and Miller are going, I think this is an excellent power play spot. Quinn Hughes has been shooting a lot less, and I'm not sure why. But this is a very good power play spot. It's a pretty decent 5-on-5 spot. There's no ownership on Van 1. They have a 17% top 2 stack percentage. I'm in on Van 1. You want to use like a 2-man of like Garland, Dakota Joshua for like a cheap filler trying to fit in some power play stuff. I think that's fine. Interesting side is the Leafs. I mean, both sides are interesting here. Like the Leafs have a pretty high road total here, 3.2. I don't know, man. Like, it's the Leafs. Like, I like Matthews has been unbelievable. And I think one-offing Matthews is probably my favorite play from the Leafs side. I just don't know if I'm going to full stack anything. Tavares' play has been sliding. Nylander has been a bit unlucky. He's been shooting the puck. He just hasn't been scoring. I think you could do like a little bit of like a power play stack for the Leafs side too, like Matthews, Nylander, Riley. I think that might be a route I would go if I was playing the Leafs. But for me, Vancouver 1 is my favorite line in this game.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the Vancouver power play first. Going back to Thanksgiving, none of their top power play forwards are in the top half in the league's regular power play forwards by on ice goals per 60 minutes. Like they're basically average, a little bit worse, and they're not generating a ton on the like they are generating like Vancouver does, but not as much as they typically do. Toronto doesn't take a lot of penalties either. They're at 2.9 minor penalties taken per game. Going back to Thanksgiving as well. So like it worries me that Vancouver's power play has been struggling. And if you look at Elias Pettersson, 31 points in his last 25 games. Like that's just tremendous. Only a quarter of those points have been on the power play, which is in one way it's good because they're generating a lot of 5-on-5 and that's where they play most of the game. But if you look at the shooting percentage of the line, the line since they got put together is still shooting 24% at 5-on-5, right? So it's like if they go to half that rate, 12% would still be like a super elite finishing rate for a line. Even if they go to half that rate and the power play doesn't get better, there's just not a lot here, right? Not for the price anyway. Like for an 18,000 or set line or something, that'd be fine. For a $23,000 line, it's not. But that ownership is just, it's like, are we looking at the same Toronto team and the same Toronto goalies as everybody else? Because like, there's nothing that I'm worried about from a defensive perspective on the Toronto side. It doesn't matter who starts in net, whether it's Samsonov or whether it's Martin Jones. Like, I'm not worried about either goaltender. In fact, I think Vancouver would be looking forward to them. The Toronto top line, when they don't have one of those top wingers next to them, Nyes or Bertuzzi or whatever, like well below average defensively, 2.9 expected goals against. Like it's a good matchup for Vancouver at 5-on-5, I think. And while I do have concerns about the power play, the Leafs penalty kill has just been bad for quite a while now. So I think I'm kind of with you that I really do like Vancouver one. Not much ownership at 1.8%. We're going to get to Edmonton a little bit later, and I'm struggling with like which expensive line I want to play because there might be a fiesta coming in that Calgary-Edmonton game. On the Toronto side, I don't really have interest in that Nylander, Tavares, Bertuzzi line because like the middle six for Vancouver and especially that Bluger line are really, really good defensively. Like I was looking at the Bluger line's last 10 games, 1.8 expected goals against. Like that's like Jordan Staal and Carolina numbers. You know what I mean? So I think it's a pretty bad matchup for Nylander and them. So I have no interest in Toronto too. I wrote up Austin Matthews in the picks article. The reason why I'm kind of hesitating on Vancouver is because this Toronto line, if you leave Holmberg there, is under 20K. They're coming in with 3.3% ownership. And honestly, like on a slate like this, whether a line is 2% or 4%, like I really don't care that much in a single entry contest. And Austin Matthews is over a goal per game over his last 21 games. Like,
oh, he's been on fire.
What are we talking about here? And the Vancouver top line, for as much as they're generating, this is what I mentioned in the picks article when I talk about Matthews. As much as they're generating 3.1 expected goals against with the top line on the ice, with the Lotto line, that's the matchup Matthews is going into. If Thatcher Demko is not a 950 goalie, and I like Demko is a goalie I'm worried about. Like he is a goalie that you should take into consideration when you're stacking against them. But if you're going to give me like a 3, 4, 5, 6, even like 7 or 8% Austin Matthews on an 8-game slate, I'll take him against any goalie in the league. That's why I'm kind of hesitating on Vancouver, is because like Austin Matthews is the best offensive player in this game. You can make an argument with David Pastrnak. He's the best offensive player on this slate. And looking at, I'll bring up ownership projections real quick. Ownership projections for DK is 4.8%. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't say he's the best offensive player on the slate. Obviously, Connor McDavid is, but he's probably number 2. If I can get the second best offensive player on an 8-game slate at 5%, like I find it pretty tough to get away from. That's why I'm struggling with Vancouver 1. So I think I prefer Toronto 1 in this matchup, but I will certainly not say a bad word about using either top line because they both have really, really high upsides.
Yeah. I mean, this is a one-off Matthews spot. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big proponent of playing Chalk Matthews by himself, but if you're going to give me 4.9% Austin Matthews,
yeah,
$5 super chat.
Okay. But what about 2.6% Mitch Marner?
He sucks. No, they've actually started to play better together. I just don't understand why. Well, I do understand why Pontus Holmberg's there. They could use Pierre Engvall there, but that's for another time. $5 super chat from Hypnotoad. Thank you very much. Thanks for everything this season, fellas. You going somewhere? The season's not over. Going on vacation? Going to chop some more fish and mushrooms down? No, but thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Toad. Certainly a vibrant member of our Discord. Usually he's one of the few people that's up early in the morning with me, so I always appreciate seeing Toad in the Discord. Gives me somebody to message back and forth. But thanks a lot for the super chat. Hopefully we can help you out a little bit here tonight.
I'm usually up then too, but I am just not a people person till like 9 a.m.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just not a people person in general. But anyway, if you sign up using the link that we put into chat, you can get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and access to said Discord. Lots of sharp people in there. Lots of people up at all hours of the night, 24 hours a day it's going on. So, yeah, get in there if you got strategy questions. Plenty of people willing to help you. So click that link in the chat. Get in premium and hop in the Discord. Say you came from the show. Washington Capitals with a 2.8 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 3.1 total. This is a home and home. Freaking TJ Oshie had a hat trick the other night. Good. Oh, I'm not even on the camera, but good for TJ Oshie. I don't love Washington in this spot. Surprise, surprise. I'm not a Washington stacker. I never have been, never will be. They are cheap enough where they can be decent fillers. You know what I mean? Like if you want to play Pacioretty, Strom, Oshie for $14K, fill your boots. You want to play Ovechkin, Wilson, Kuznetsov for $14.8, fill your boots. You know what I mean? Like if you want to get them in as like a filler in your 150 max or whatever, I think that's fine. Am I going to play them in my 1 to 3? No. I'm interested in the St. Louis side. They put Kyrou back on the top line and Thomas Buchnevich after that one game escapade with Jake Neighbors there. The issue I'm running into here, they're $100 more than that Dallas top line. They're coming in with like 5 times the ownership, 3 times the ownership. Coming in projected at 16.5% projected. Negative leverage there. I think it's a good spot. Like the analysis from the other night remains, and Kyrou is a better player than Jake Neighbors. So this line is good on both ends of the ice. It's just the ownership is a bit worrisome to me. Not like to the point where like if you love them, you don't play them because the ownership like that. Like I talk about ownership from like why would I play 17% St. Louis 1 in this spot when I can get the Dallas top line in an equally good matchup for a third of the ownership. You know what I mean? So like if you love the Blues, you can play the Blues. And I think they're in a good spot. It's just an ownership thing for me. I'd rather play Dallas 1.
It sucks that I have interest in both sides of a Washington St. Louis game. This is going to be a painful night.
We got Ducks and Sharks coming up, and I have interest in both sides of that game.
I wrote about Jordan Kyrou in the picks article. He's projected to be one of the highest known players on the entire slate. I think him and David Pasternak are 1-2 in one order or the other. So, there's going to be a lot of ownership on St. Louis. I'll bring up the top stacks real quick. 12.6% top 2 stacks, 16.5% ownership. Here's the problem with me playing a chalky over on St. Louis tonight is like, yes, their power play has generally been bad this year, but we've talked about how Jake Neighbors has made the power play, and especially Jordan Kyrou, a little bit better. But this is a really bad power play spot. Like if there's one thing that Washington has had basically all season, it's a really good penalty kill, and it's one of those things that has kept them in games. Like yes, they still get blown out. Like this is a mediocre at best team; they'll get blown out. But they've generally had a really good penalty kill all season. It's been great over the last 6 weeks. So you're really hoping St. Louis can do it all at 5-on-5. Now, the reason why they can do it all at 5-on-5 is I don't know this for sure. I suspect that the Robert Thomas line will go out against Ovechkin and Kuznetsov. I don't know if anybody's
They're trash.
Oh my God, they're bad. I don't know if anybody's looked at the Ovechkin and Kuznetsov, Tom Wilson defensive numbers this year.
It's not even just this year.
Yes, like this goes back to last year. That's why I don't feel like that bad about a 125-minute sample. But just this year, it's 4.2 expected goals against per 60 minutes. And the actual goals against are not far off that either. They're literally like the Carolina. They're worse defensively at 5-on-5 than Carolina is on the penalty kill. Like that's how bad they are. And that is a really, really good matchup for Kyrou, Thomas, and Buchnevich, who are up to 3.5 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 under their new coach. So I really do like St. Louis 1. to get to 3 goals, they're probably going to have to do it all in 5-on-5, and they can do it. They're talented enough to do it. It is a good enough matchup to do it. I just think it's asking a lot when you're looking at a line that is projected for 16.5%. And honestly, I think that it could honestly be up from there in single entry contests. Like if you're playing like the $12 single entry on DK or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those players at 20% or whatever, or something like that. It's the Washington side that's actually a little bit more interesting for me. I feel bad missing the boat on the game on Thursday because that filler stack would have gone in real well with my Tampa stack. But Pacioretty and Strome have looked really good together offensively. 3.5 expected goals per 60 minutes and 95 minutes together. That includes time with Alex Ovechkin when Ovechkin was tracking them down. I don't know if TJ Oshie is necessarily the answer, but they're going to go into those second and third lines from St. Louis. And honestly, once you get past the top line from the Blues, it's just real bad defensively. I was looking at the expected goals against since they hired their new coach. The expected goals against with the top line off the ice, it goes up something like 25% when the top line's off the ice. Actual goals against are almost doubled. Like this is a bad defensive team when they don't have the Thomas Buchnevich-Kyrou trio skating. So I don't mind going back to that Strome-Pacioretty line because they have been playing well since they've been assembled. I think the 5-on-5 matchup is really good, and they're cheap at like $14K or whatever. So you can put them with, you can't put them with Edmonton 1 or Vancouver, but you can put them with, certainly Dallas. You can put them with your Toronto lines. You can put them with Calgary. You can put them they'll fit with Pittsburgh. They'll fit with the Rangers. So I don't mind going back to that Pacioretty line. But yeah, I like the St. Louis top line the best in this game. They're just coming in with a lot of ownership.
Yeah, same. For some reason, I don't mind playing the Blues when they're chalk, and it's just, I don't know, man. Like, I have some weird biases that I'm going to need to like talk to someone about, but like that's one of them. Like, I don't mind playing the Blues when they're chalky.
There's a career to have, DFS therapist.
Yeah, they never go out of business. But anyway, I could talk to them all day. But we got a couple super chats before we get to the Battle of Alberta. Could Cliffy still slander Norris for us? Oh, I bet you he could. And then thoughts on game stacking Oilers and the Pilot Lights. We are getting to that game next. Thank you so much, Mr. Spike, for the super chat. Your wings suck, by the way. And a $25 super chat from Mark Chambers. Thank you very much. You guys help immensely every season. Thank you both. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad we can help you.
Yeah. All I will say is that now that Shane Pinto is signed, at least the Ottawa Senators have an $8 million fourth line center that they can use. Thanks for your super chat, Red Spike. We certainly appreciate it. And thanks, Mark, for the $25 super chat. I'm glad we could help you out. We try to help out when we can, try to win when we can, but certainly we appreciate and we like hearing when we can help other people out and help them win, whether it be through DFS or betting or even season-long fantasy. We've answered those questions here before, but yeah, thanks for the super chats, fellas.
They should move Norris to the wing, but I don't know if they're going to do that. They committed a lot of money to him.
I mean, it certainly can't be worse than the first half of this season.
Yeah, I mean, bad organizations stay bad for a reason. What just happened? There we go.
Well, hey, I'm just looking at their warm-ups right now for the game against Winnipeg, and they do have Norris on the third line with Tarasenko, so at least they're learning, it appears. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when Pinto Beans comes back. He might be third line wing there, but we'll see. Let's get to the Battle of Alberta, Haas. I don't know why I add Haas. It's just fun to add Haas to the end of any word because Niehaus is just a mess. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.7 total. Heading into Calgary, the Oilers have a 3 total. I have no data to back this up, and I should have looked it up beforehand. It's kind of like a PV or PvP, pitcher versus batter, PvP. I don't know what I'm saying, but I have no data. It just seems like every time these two teams play, it's just an outrageously high-scoring game. That being said, tonight makes some sense with Vidar and net. And the issue I'm running into with playing Vancouver 1 is because I really do like them. But for $700 more, you can get Edmonton 1, and they're coming in projected at 6.5% against Dan Vladar. BVP, thank you. Clayton giveth, Clayton taketh. But yeah, 6.5% Edmonton 1. They're matchup proof. This is a good matchup. Vladar sucks. Like you dropped something in the Discord about him this morning. He's just bad. Like he's not even like replacement level. He's like, just give me Marzlikins for the love of God. You know what I mean? Like, get him out of here. Maybe he's great in the locker room, and I understand like why they keep him around. But like, if you're just gonna house one of the best goalie prospect in the minors or on the bench, like, do something. Markstrom's still hurt. So I love Edmonton 1 here at that ownership. I would suspect after the Vladar news that the Edmonton ownership is going to go up here. Excuse me. I think, you can go Edmonton 2 here. They'll avoid Backlund and Coleman. Go like Draisaitl, Fogle. But like, I think you need to add in someone on the top line for power play. Calgary's side's a bit interesting here because I played them the other night, and they scored against the Leafs on the power play. The Flames, one of the worst power plays in the league besides the Penguins, scored on the power play. But Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau, 14,000, coming in at 1.8%. I know they'll probably see like Edmonton 3, which, like, if you held a gun to my head without me looking at top stacks, I wouldn't be able to name them. So, like, I don't mind Calgary 1 here. Also, don't mind a Kadri 1-off. Like, Coronado's there now, who's another really good prospect. So, like, I love the Kadri Zari Coronado line. I just have minutes concerns here, right? Because, like, Huska, is that his name? The coach, like, he's been playing them like 12, 13 minutes. They're probably not going to get top power play time with the top line fully correlated. I think Calgary 2 is fine, but it's minutes concerns. Calgary 1, the Coleman Backlund line as well, and Edmonton 1 is just in a smash spot.
Yeah, just for the matchup, like, the Backlund line will probably see a fair bit of McDavid. The other night against Toronto, they were using they're trying to get the Kadri line out against Toronto's bottom 6. Didn't always happen. I assume, especially with Matt Coronado there, they're going to try to keep them away from the big boys from Edmonton. So I think Kadri's line is going to go out against the bottom 6. It does leave Huberdeau and Lindholm and Sharangovich against Draisaitl's line. And like Draisaitl's line has been really, really good offensively, but they've also been below average defensively. And I think that is certainly a matchup that they can take advantage of. One thing I brought up about Huberdeau, I forget if it was in our Discord or on Twitter, like his playmaking numbers have taken a dive, some of them, but he also has, like, when he has the zone entry, when he has the puck and he's carrying it into the zone, he has a really strong rate of scoring chances created off those zone entries. So, like, I think it's right up there with, like, Rope Hintz. You know what I mean? Like, that type of level where he's not carrying the puck a lot, but when they do, they're really taking advantage of it. So I think, even though, like, Huberdeau is certainly not the player he was like 3 years ago, there has been some signs of life here, which, again, sounds like a backhanded compliment, but when you've been playing that bad, you'll look for any signs of life. And Calgary's top line, 73 shot attempts per 60 minutes over their last 10 games. Like, they're creating a lot of shots, not necessarily a lot of quality. And I think that factors in when you consider Huberdeau's not the one, like, doing a lot of the zone entries. It is, Lindholm. It is Sharangovich at times, certainly the defenseman. But they're going to get Draisaitl. Edmonton does take their fair share of penalties, perfectly correlated on the power play. I agree with you. I do like Calgary 1 here. It's the Edmonton side, like, that we do have to talk about, because, like, you're right, Dan Vladar sucks. What I talked about in our Discord is shot distance is very important when you're looking at goaltender performance. And, like, if you sort by shot distance at the end of the season for the goalies that face shots from the furthest away, like, I think, like, goalies that face close-up shots, their average shot distance will be like 29 to 32 feet. And goalies that face them from far away, it'll be like 36 to 39 feet. There are six goalies, with at least an average shot distance of 37 feet or more. Vladar is one of them, and he's the only goalie with a save percentage at 5-on-5 under 910, and it was like 885 or something like that. Like a distant last. He's getting really easy shots, and he still sucks ass. Like, that's kind of the problem here. It's like, what else can Calgary do but literally give him one of the best environments for saving shots that you can humanly get, and he's still like a below average backup. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of the problem with Vladar in net. Like, and he hasn't been terrible like every single game, but he has been bad most games, and that's why I kind of like Edmonton, because it's not necessarily a great matchup, but they're not coming in with any like little ownership, 6.5%. They're one of the top two probability stacks on the night, and they're facing the guy that, outside of Jack Campbell, like his start with Edmonton, and outside of maybe Antti Raanta, Ilya Samsonov, like Vladar has been one of the worst 4 or 5 goalies in the league. Like, just imagine if this was facing, Ilya Samsonov against Toronto. I think people would be lining up to play Edmonton. So I really do like the Edmonton top line. They're going in a little bit of a funk scoring wise, but they're still at 4.4 expected goals per 60 minutes over the last 3 weeks. It's just their shooting percentage has dried up a little bit. And if there's one cure for shooting percentages, it's facing Dan Vladar. So I really, really do like Edmonton 1 here. Also like Calgary 1 as well. I will say the Kadri line, like I think Coronado is a good fill-in for Pospisil. Like, Coronado, I think, is second in points per game amongst rookies in the AHL, and he's at 3.5 shots per game. Like, he is a really good offensive prospect. So using that line is fine. But I think it's both top lines I like best in this one.
Yeah. Let's go from this high-scoring affair to this dumpster fire in a tire fire. I don't even know what to call this game. The Anaheim Ducks with a 3.2 total. Heading into San Jose, the Sharks have a 2.9 total. Logan Couture is back for the Sharks. Mikael Granlund went on IR. Like, I don't know, man. Like, Couture being back is probably an upgrade. He hasn't been healthy much recently, so it's looking like the Couture line is going to be Couture, Eklund, Barabanov, which would lead me to believe that the Hurdle line will be with Zetterlund and Philip Zadina. That remains to be seen. Also, Alex Killorn is getting knee surgery, so he's going to be out tonight. We're kind of trying to figure out who the heck is going to move up with Terry and Carlson, and we both kind of landed on Henrique because Max Jones is hurt. It could be Silfverberg, but more likely it's going to be Henrique, since he does play with Terry a bunch when Uncle Leo is out for load management, which is just ridiculous. But so it could be Carlson, Terry, Henrique. That would make the line $600 more, $14,600. I still think this is a very good matchup. Obviously, the Ducks having a 3.2 total is probably their biggest total in like 2 years, but it's fine. I like that line. I don't know if they're going to be fully correlated because Henrique's on the other power play unit, but we don't know who's going to fill in for Killorn on the power play unit. Henrique could literally just play the whole 2 minutes, and it wouldn't surprise me. So I do like Anaheim 1. I do like Anaheim 2 as well. Vetrano, McTavish, Strome. I prefer Terry. Like, anytime the Ducks play, I just prefer who's playing with Terry. It's just another bias that maybe I need to talk to someone about. I don't know. But I do like both Ducks tops lines. Interesting side here is the Sharks, right? Because the lines are a bit different than they are in top stacks, because they practiced yesterday and then they switched them up today. If it is Hurdle and Zetterlund, I do like that combo. Like Fabian Zetterlund has had a pretty good season. Hurdle's their best player. Zadina is, whatever. Like, you can put like 38 different guys on that Sharks roster there, and I'll just be like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a guy there. I don't mind Hurdle, Zetterlund. Couture, Eklund, Barabanov seems like a pretty solid line. I do worry a bit about Couture, but it's the Ducks. So, like, I think this is a game you have to consider both sides, because the most expensive line in this game is 14-6, and it's a 6 going on trending towards a 6.5 total.
Before I get to this game, can I talk about Dan Vladar one more time?
Oh, please. Let's just nuke him off the face of the earth.
So the hope was, it looked like Jacob Markstrom was going to be starting today, right? And at 1:12 p.m. Eastern, or 1:12 p.m. my time, sorry, the Edmonton Oilers team total, according to Fantasy Labs, was 3.6. 4 minutes later, Dan Vladar was announced as the starter. And within 45 minutes, the team total went from 3.6 to 3.9. 10%. The team total went up 8% in about 40 minutes after Vladar was announced as the starter. So, yes, he's not very good. I'm sorry. I was trying to hold in my laughter when I saw that. Anyways, sorry.
All right. While you're laughing, let's just talk about some 2 quick super chats real quick. We got a $10 super chat from Chris Negus. Sorry, $10 Canadian. That's like $1.31. I'm just kidding, but thank you very much there. And Brandon Armstrong, I have issues, man. Braden Armstrong, I saw you had a good night in the Discord last night. Keep up the great work. Never know how to play NHL DFS before finding your guys' show last year. Always appreciate all your insight and analysis. Congrats on your night last night. Yeah, and I saw you had a good night. Congrats to you. I was up at 3 a.m, and I meant to say something, but then I passed out like the old man I am. So congrats to you.
Yeah, congrats, Braden, and thanks a lot for the super chat. Always nice to hear helping people get into NHL DFS rather than people that are already here. Like, we do want to try to grow this little niche sport a little bit. So we love to hear that. And thank you for the super chat. And thanks to Chris as well. Always love hearing from Chris. I feel like we won't hear from Chris in the Discord for like 2 or 3 days. And then all of a sudden he'll just pop in and say, hey, like Cliffy, I'm like 4 hours away from where you live or something like that, because like he does work in the area. So it just kind of, I just get a kick out of it. But yeah, thanks a lot, Chris, for the super chat, and Braden as well. To get to that Anaheim San Jose game, I agree with you on Hurdle and Zetterlund. I do have interest in that line. Hurdle and Zetterlund are both going to be on the top power play unit. They're going with a 5-forward top power play unit. That kind of worries me. You and I have talked a lot about 5-forward power plays. We talked about some of the research. I believe it was Allison Lucan. She works for a Seattle broadcast team now, but at the time she had talked about 5-forward power play units. Just there's just not a lot of success there. It's why teams try it. Teams like Toronto and Florida and Dallas have tried it, and it's just not worked. And they've gotten away from it fairly quickly. Well, I can't imagine it's going to work for the San Jose Sharks, but I guess we'll see. Anaheim does take a lot of penalties, 5 minor penalties per game over the last 2 months. San Jose doesn't draw a lot of power plays. That's kind of the issue here. It's fairly chalky, and I just think that there are other, cheap-ish lines that you can go to. Like, they're a little bit more expensive, but I would way, way rather play Dallas 2 here tonight than either of these San Jose lines. We just talked about the Kadri, Zeri, Coronado line. Like, I think they're cheaper than either of the top 2 San Jose lines here, and I would rather play them. Like, that's just kind of the issue that I'm running into with San Jose. It's like, I don't want to play an over-owned, chalky San Jose Sharks when there are other spots on the slate that you can go to that won't be, nearly as chalky. The Washington Dylan Strome line that we talked about, a little bit more expensive, but I think they're certainly in play. We've mentioned that Dallas second line, the Montreal Josh Roy, Armia Monahan line, I think is certainly in play as well. Like, there are just other lines I would rather go to. The line that I like best in this game, I hate to kind of disagree with you, but it is the McTavish line from Anaheim. It's the only line that's been able to consistently generate not only both offense but goals as well this year. I think that's the one issue that I'm running into with Anaheim's top line. It's like, who's going to finish? Because Troy Terry's, he's been better, but not having a great goal scoring season. Leo Carlsson, certainly, he's talked about him the other day. Like, he's good at helping create offense, but creating offense and finishing the play are two different things. And they just haven't been able to do the latter. Frank Vetrano has been able to score in his time with Mason McTavish, even with Ryan Strome, like going back to last year. They're not coming in with a whole bunch of ownership either. 6.6% ownership against a 4.4% top two stack. It's one of the mid-price lines I was talking about earlier that I do like here tonight. I'm not worried about any matchup from the San Jose side. Anaheim does draw a lot of power plays themselves, 4 power play opportunities per game. Strome and Vetrano do skate on the same power play unit. So I think it's that McTavish line I like best in this game. I just don't want it. It was like the other night with Montreal when Montreal was at home with like a 16% projected ownership. And I was just like, I don't want to play a chalky line from a bad team. That's just kind of the way that I look at it. So I think I would rather play the Anaheim side, and I think I would rather play the McTavish line.
That makes sense. Like, I have nothing against that line. I don't know. The mental
block. I get it. I like the Anaheim side like much better, just generally speaking. I don't have a problem with either of the top two lines. I'm just thinking through my process that I do. Like I prefer a little bit more, I guess, reliability. Imagine reliability from the Anaheim Ducks, I guess, but just a little bit more reliability, I think, in that Anaheim second line.
Well, it is true because it's not a certainty that Henrique's going to be there. It could be anybody there. So,
right.
If it's not Henrique and it's someone like Silfverberg or like fake Claude Giroux, you know what I mean? Like, then, like, I don't know. I don't really love that line. If it is Henrique, I don't mind them. We are running a sale for MMA DFS. If you follow me on Twitter, I did release a quick picks article. I keep saying that. A quick picks video. But, excuse me, Greg Ehrenberg also has a bunch of stuff up on YouTube. I will have weekly YouTube stuff as well. And through tomorrow, if you use promo code 297, you get 30% off the Sims package. You get the data, you get the ownership, you get all that good jazz. Click the link in the chat. 30% off. That ends tomorrow. That is a great deal, especially if you MMA. That's a mouthful. I put 150 into the mini max today. 30% off. Promo code 297. I don't know what that sells itself. I don't even have to do anything. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 3.1 total heading into Las Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 2.9 total. More ownership on cheap lines. Marchessault, Barbashev, 10.7% projected, 3% tops 2 stack. Like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, I kind of don't get it. Like, Vegas, Eichel's hurt. The team's a mess. Like, Shea Theodore's still out. The roster's just not great. This is a chalk spot that I don't mind fading, even though I always trash the Pittsburgh Penguins goaltending. I think I'd rather go elsewhere. Like, I'd rather play Calgary. I'd rather play Dallas. You know what I mean? I might even prefer to play the Caps here. God. Oh, that hurt. That hurt. Glad I got that out. But for me, Pittsburgh 1 is my favorite line in this game, and it's not particularly close. They're coming in with half the ownership of their top 2 stack percentage. They're 20,500. I just like that line. And Vegas's penalty kill has been sliding, and I know Pittsburgh, we've talked ad nauseum about the Pittsburgh power play, but it's a good power play spot. It's a good 5-on-5 spot. I like Pitt 1 here, and I think they're the cheapest of the $20,000 lines that I like. So, like, you can fit them in with St. Louis without really fully punting. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm in on Pitt 1.
Yeah, I think this is another kind of like a chalk spot that I'm not a big fan of. I think Pittsburgh kind of gets disrespected. Like, I think there's some assumption like they're bad defensively or whatever because, they have older players. Erik Karlsson's there now, et cetera, et cetera. That's just not the case. Like, don't get me wrong. There are times like Karlsson has had some bad games this year, like bad turnovers leading directly to goals against and things like that. I'm just talking like on looking at the entire picture, their last 20 games alone, 6th fewest expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, 6th fewest actual goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Over their last 20 games, the only team in the Eastern Conference giving up fewer goals per minute than Pittsburgh is Philadelphia. And we know how good they've been defensively. So this is like another one of those like cheap chalky spot that I don't really like. If anything, I would probably go to that Stone Stevenson Dorofeyev line. I think Dorofeyev is having a nice rookie season for the player that he is. Going into that Pittsburgh one line, which has been better defensively with Raquel there, but has had defensive issues generally speaking this season. So I don't mind Stone, Stevenson, and Dorofeyev, I guess, but it's the Pittsburgh side that I do like best. I wrote up Pittsburgh one in the article, wrote up Rickard Raquel in the article as well. I'm worried about Raquel's ice time now that he's on the second power play unit, but he had been getting good levels of ice time, 10 points. 12 points in his last 12 games or something like that. Maybe it was 10 in his last 10. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. But it was a point per game. Him and Crosby and Gensel, 3 expected goals per 60 minutes. Crosby, Gensel, and Raquel have been tremendous basically not this entire season, but basically since they got put together. 3.7 expected goals was the number I was looking for per 60 minutes and 3.5 actual goals. Vegas is just missing a lot of players. That's kind of the problem that I have with Vegas. And, Dorofeyev and Stone have decent defensive numbers together, but Stone and Stevenson definitely do not. Talked about it over and over how much that line has struggled defensively this season. I think it's actually a pretty good matchup for Pitt 1. So I do really like Pittsburgh 1 here. You want to go to Pitt 2 because there's honestly not a lot of ownership coming in on Pittsburgh in general. The top line coming in a lot lower owned, 8.7%, which feels like almost a sign that you kind of have to play Pitt 1 here tonight. But Pitt 2 down at 1.9%, and you get Rust and Malkin both on the top power play unit. And Drew O'Connor's not some throwaway guy. He has 25 shots in his last 10 games. I think like 6 points in that span or something like that. Like, this is a guy I was looking at before the season to kind of round out that top 6. I thought it would be with Riley Smith. Riley Smith's obviously hurt now. But Drew O'Connor's looked pretty good on that second line. So I think the second line is definitely in play, but it's the Pittsburgh top line I like best in this game.
Those Wiley O'Connor brothers. Actually, I like both of them. They're good middle 6 players. I do like Pitt 1 here too. Let's get to the last game of the night here. New York Rangers with a 2.9 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3.1. Big save Dave for the Kings. It's probably going to be Igor. For the Rangers,
they just announced quick, like 5 minutes ago.
Big old narrative street there.
Yeah.
But I was going to actually kind of bash Igor. Not like bash him, but like 2 seasons ago, he had one of the best seasons a goalie has ever had in the NHL. And since then, like last year, he was 18th in goals saved above expected. This year, he's, I think, 26th. Like, he just hasn't had a great season. Maybe he figures it out. He's still having a decent season, but, it's hard to replicate that season from 2 years ago. That was just bonkers. But, yeah. Kings line's a bit jumbled, and by a bit jumbled, I mean Byfield and Pierre-Luc Dubois have switched spots. Byfield is now centering the third line with LaFerriere and Jarrett Anderson-Dolan. Pierre-Luc Dubois is now on the top line with Kempe and Kopitar. PLD, $200 cheaper than Byfield, making LA1 $15,800. That is interesting because I kind of like I'm a big Byfield guy. But at the same time, Pierre-Luc Dubois has been playing with nobody, and his numbers have been good. You get him with Kopitar and Kempe, that could unlock some stuff. And I know, like, for some reason, people are obsessed with his game on Twitter. Like, all I see, Pierre-Luc Dubois, blah, blah. Give him a run up on that top line. I think he's gonna do well there. I like that line. It's It's not getting much ownership. We need a top stacks run with PLD there, but he's only $200 cheaper than Byfield, so I wouldn't imagine the ownership changes much. As of now, they're coming in at 2.9% projected ownership. I like that line. You want to go to LA2, they're $100 more, coming in at 7.3% projected. I'm not sure the matchups particularly matter. Like, yeah, the Zibanejad, Kreider, Kakko line is better defensively than the Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line, but like, it's not like to the point where I'm going to fade a line because they're facing Zibanejad, Kreider, Kakko. You know what I mean? So like, I'm fine with either LA line, and I think you got to consider some Rangers here going up against Big Save Dave. You know what I mean? And it is the Rangers second line, and again, they're over 20,000, but they're coming in at 1.7% projected. I think that's more of an MME play because you got Pitt 1, you got Edmonton 1, you got Van 1, you got Boston 1. You know what I mean? That probably take precedence. But in your MME portfolio, they have an 8.1% top 2 stack and 1.7% ownership. Like, you're getting a lot of positive leverage there. They've been excellent all season. I think if I was even 20 maxing going like 2 of 20, get you 5x the field, I'm perfectly fine with that. You want to go to Zibanejad, Kreider, Kakko, I think that's fine as well. They're more, they're $4,700 cheaper. So I think the Rangers are more of an MME type deal for me, but I do like that new look Kings 1 with Pierre-Luc Dubois there.
Yeah, I just to, kind of go along with your point on Dubois. I wrote him up in the picks article. One of the points that I make there, his points per minute at 5-on-5 this season are higher than any season he had in Winnipeg. Like, you have to go back to 2019, 2020 to find a points per minute production rate for Dubois higher than what he's done so far this year. It's just that he's been stuffed down the lineup on the third line and off the top power play unit, so his raw stats haven't been very good. But the production has been better than at 5-on-5, has been better than it was at any point in his Winnipeg tenure. Not only that, but the playmaking data I was referencing earlier, like Kevin Fiala leads the team in assists on teammate scoring chances. I don't think that would surprise anybody. Pierre-Luc Dubois is second behind him, and those two guys are way out in front of everyone else. Like, Dubois has actually been a really, really good playmaker, which is why I wanted to see him get away from Alex Laferriere, because Laferriere is just not like, he scored a goal, I think that was Sunday or Monday against Carolina. He hasn't really been doing a whole lot this season. And then you get to Carl Grundstrom and Jared Anderson-Dolan. Arthur Kaliev's just not coming around as a goal-scoring prospect. Like, he just hasn't had anybody to play with. Now he gets Adrian Kempe on that top line. We'll see what happens, but I think Dubois is being put in the best position to succeed that he's been in basically since like Halloween. So I agree with you. I do like that Kings top line here. Going back to, if you don't want to risk it and to see what finds out, just going to the Kings second line, I think is perfectly fine. Like, they're still, 3.2 expected goals per 60 minutes since Christmas. So, they're getting 18, 19 minutes a game of late. Like, perfectly fine going to Kings 2. I just think Kings 1 is going to be a lot better with PLD there than they've shown with Byfield. Like, Byfield was great there through the first 8 weeks of the season. It's just been like this last 6 weeks where the line has really struggled and they're trying something different. And I think Dubois is going to fit in perfectly well on that top line. The more interesting side is the Rangers side, as you were talking about. Like, there's no ownership on either of those lines. If you want to play Rangers 1, go ahead and play Rangers 1. That is a mid-price line that I was talking about earlier. Like, Dave Riddick and net, I understand why they're going with Riddick. Dave Riddick, he doesn't scare me. Like, this is not a goalie that I would really be that scared of. The Kings second line, their defensive numbers have been sliding a little bit. The top line, I think their defensive numbers have been sliding a little bit. I think a lot of it has to do with the defensemen more than the forwards, but the defensemen have to be on the ice anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I think both Rangers lines are certainly in play. It's kind of just what you want to do with the rest of your lineup. Like, obviously, in a nutshell, I like Rangers 2 better. But I think if you're looking for a mid-price line to put in with like a 20K Austin Matthews liner or whatever it is, I think Rangers 1 is perfectly fine here. But I'm kind of interested to see how that Kings 1 line does, because I think I think Dubois has a real good chance of success here if the Kings decide to stick with it.
I think they are going to stick with it because Byfield's an NHL center. Let's be real. And Arvidsson's a few weeks away. I think they're getting ready for a Kaliev, Byfield, Arvidsson third line. That would be
it's going to be Laferriere, Arvidsson, Byfield. Like Kaliev's, I think Kaliev's top 9 minutes are basically done for the season, and it sucks to say because I'm a fan of his, but he's not scoring. He's just not scoring, and when you're getting paid to score goals and you're not scoring, you're not going to get it.
Well, boo ba-choo then. But yeah, no, like they're getting ready. They're transitioning Byfield to center now. Yeah. So PLD is more suited for the wing anyway. So getting ready for that. That is the 8-game slate. Talk a little bit about defensemen here. Top of the board, we got Quinn Hughes at 7,200. Like, I saw a message earlier that you're going to slander, or like you'll probably say something negative about him. Like the combo meal is confirmed. I don't mind him in the spot, but like how you mentioned that the power play hasn't been great, and I don't know. I have a bit of a trepidation with Quinn Hughes tonight. Bouchard, I think, is fine at 6,900. Mackenzie Weegar and Mike Matheson are probably the two guys, and Morgan Riley, are the three guys in the 6K range that I'm interested in. But I generally don't spend up super expensive for defensemen. Who else you liking?
Yeah, it's of the expensive guys. They're honestly two pairs of guys in the same game. I like Bouchard and Weegar in that Edmonton Calgary game. I wrote up Weegar in the picks article. Funny enough, only two defensemen with at least 2.3 shots and 2.5 blocks per game this season. They're both on the same team. It's Weegar and Anderson. But Weegar is back on the top power play unit now, so I do like him. Certainly, I always like Bouchard. We like anybody playing against Dan Vladar, and that includes the defensemen. Both McAvoy and Matheson in that Montreal-Boston game. Like I said, Boston takes a ton of penalties, and their penalty kill really hasn't been that good for a while now. So I don't mind Matheson and certainly McAvoy playing for Boston in that great matchup. In the mid-price range, John Carlson's projecting extremely well against St. Louis. It's kind of curious to me because like it doesn't seem like that's going to be a high-paced matchup. I think he's fine, but the two defensemen in that price range that really grade out well for me personally are Thomas Harley, of course, slappy for Harley, and Jacob Trouba. I think that Rangers game is a good 5-on-5 game for Trouba, so to rack up the peripherals, don't mind him. Caden Gooley as well. The guy's at 4 block shots per game over his last 10 games, and they're playing Boston, so where his prices come down over the last few weeks, I don't mind Gooley in the mid-price range. Cheaper defenseman, Esa Lindell from Dallas. He's been getting minutes since the injury to Haskin and Shimon Nemec again for New Jersey, so both sides of that game. Chris Tanev for Calgary. Don't mind him on the blue line against Edmonton. He might have to block a lot of shots here. Two cheap defensemen that I really like. Jackson Lacombe running the top power play unit for Anaheim. I mentioned that in the picks article. He's been getting more minutes as well. Scott Perunovich, 2,500 for St. Louis. He's getting like 17 minutes, which honestly, considering the way that they typically use him, feels like a lot of minutes for him. And he's getting some power play time. So if you need a Stoneman punt, don't mind Perunovich either. Yeah,
just to hit home that point about Caden Goulet. Every time I hear Goulet, I think of Robert Goulet, the SNL skit.
Yeah.
But he has 124 block shots in 41 games this season. He is averaging a block bonus a game.
He's the next David Savard.
Yeah. They pump him out in Montreal. They pump out the Savards. What a bloodline there. But let's talk about some goalies. Linus Ullmark, top of the board here, 8,400. Then Bennington. I don't mind Ullmark if you're spending up. It's a winnable game. That's a cash play. The interesting GPP spend up in the 8Ks are Thatcher Demko and Logan Thompson. I think both are fine if you're spending up. I just don't personally, I don't spend up often, but those would be the guys I do spend up on. It is Wedgwood for Dallas tonight, and it is Blackwood. Lots of wood here tonight. Miles Wood maybe rose up in the game while we're on the air. I don't even know, but don't really like the Woods too much. Then you have Quick. Then you have Dawes. Like the mid range is just a bunch of crap. Like I don't mind whoever starts for Anaheim, whether it's Gibson or Dostal. And then for super cheap, I don't mind the Pittsburgh starter. After I bash them, I don't mind it. I also don't mind Charlie Lindgren. He has been very good this season. And if you really want to fasten your seatbelts and go for a ride, Dikembe Mutombo at 7K.
Yeah, I had 4 goalies written down. 4 goalies that projected reasonably well for me. 3 of them are not starting anymore. I had Kakinen. It's Blackwood instead. I mean, Kakinen to Blackwood's not that big of a difference, so I think Blackwood certainly fine. I had Jake Ottinger. Obviously, it's Scott Wedgwood starting now. I'm not playing Scott Wedgwood, I'll tell you that much. And I had Igor. I mean, I guess if Jonathan Quick is going to have a good road game tonight, I mean, it's got to be, right? So if you want to live on narrative street, Johnny Quick, but it is Logan Thompson I like best on the slate. I'm not a guy to spend up for goalies, but Logan Thompson grades out like pretty easily the best for me, and he's projecting extremely well on Stochastic as well. So I do like Logan Thompson. Mutombo, I think, is playable if you really need like a punt goalie. I would probably try to find the extra money to go and pay up for Charlie Lindgren. I think is the way that I would look at it. Like I would try to find that, what is it, like $300 difference, $200 difference?
200, yeah.
Yeah, I would probably try to find the $200 to get to Charlie Lindgren for a cheap goalie.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Mutombo as a goalie. It's just like the team in front of him has issues, we could say. I don't know.
Yeah, they've been looking like the Rangers the last 10 games or so.
Walked right into that one. I'll allow it though. They've been bad recently. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Mentioned his line in the article. Mentioned him earlier on the show. I'm going with Rope Hintz.
Okay, I had Wyatt Johnston, so we're both on that line. Let me get another one here. I can't go Rangers because every time I panic, I go Rangers, and that's just too easy. I'm not going to panic. Jonathan Huberdeau.
Wouldn't that be something? That would be Battle of Alberta at home on Hockey Night in Canada and get a hat trick. I think that might make up for the terrible 125 games he's played so far.
You know what? Like we've talked like how his game has declined, but like the quality of player he's gone from Florida to Calgary, like he's playing with Yegor Sharangovich. Like he's having a good season, but it's not Barkov. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, we will be lots of games next week, so we are going to figure out the schedule. But
I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. Every day except for Friday and Sunday.
Yeah. We're going to be busy next week. I won't be here Tuesday, but Cliffy, I think, will take you solo. But we will be here most of the week. So thank you guys for tuning in. Link in the chat if you're looking to go premium. Good luck, everybody, tonight. And I hope the Vancouver Canucks embarrass the Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada.
Good luck tonight, everybody.